Chapter 5. Sometimes we take a lot of things for granted. And there's a headline in my Bible here. There's little headline things there. And the headline at the start of this is Walk by the Spirit. And but it's interesting how much of this ties in to those of us in the United States of America, whether we came from another country, or whether we were born here, or whether we were just somebody who never, ever knew freedoms of any kind. It was for freedom that Christ set us free. Therefore, keep standing firm and do not be subject again to a yoke of slavery. Behold, I, Paul, say to you that if you receive circumcision, Christ will be of no benefit to you. And I testify again to every man who receives circumcision that he is under obligation to keep the whole law. You have been served from Christ, you who are seeking to be justified by the law. You have fallen from grace. For we walk through the Spirit by faith, are waiting for the hope of righteousness. For in Christ Jesus neither circumcision nor uncircumcision means anything, but faith working through love. You were running well. Who hindered you from obeying the truth? This persuasion did not come from him who calls you. A little leaven leavens the whole lump of dough. I have confidence in you, in the Lord, that you will adopt no other view, but the one who is disturbing you will bear his judgment, whoever he is. But I, brethren, if I still preach circumcision, why am I still persecuted? Then the stumbling block of the cross has been abolished. I wish that those who are troubling you would even mutilate themselves. For you are called to freedom, brethren. Only do not turn your freedom into an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. Freedom. It's a word that we use a lot now. And it's a word that we abuse a lot right now. Now, every one of us here has chosen to live in the United States. You can say, well, I didn't. I was born here. My parents grew up here. I have no choice. You always have a choice. Get on an airplane, you can go anywhere in the world. But you've chosen to live in this country. And the freedoms that this country gives us, and it was won by the soldiers who fought for it. And years ago in the Revolutionary War, men were tired of being underneath the rule of England. And they fought for freedom. They fought for many different types of freedom and for many different kinds of things. And you look at these words here, and it's interesting because I look at our country sometimes and I see it was for freedom that Christ set us free. Therefore, keep standing firm and do not be subject again to a yoke of slavery. And you see this country where people had fought for the freedoms, and now, because of a lot of different reasons, we are giving up a lot of our freedoms. We are giving up a lot of our passions and our desires for freedom that made this country great. As I look around this congregation, I see at least 4 of us that are on the list, 5 of us, that are on the list to be pulled off of any plane line, any train line, any bus line, and searched. That would be me and Rex and Bill, Jason, Corey, Neil. Anybody that has, that's 6. I missed one. That was more than I said. I said 5 and read 6. So. But anybody with facial hair can be pulled out of any line and searched and held, even to the point of letting the flame leave without you. And that is their right now. We have given them that right. And we are doing that with other freedoms. There's people that don't want the pastor to be able to say what the pastor says, even if it's out of the Bible, that we are saying things that are offending people. The gospel is offensive. It tells us there's no way we can save ourselves. We should not ever give back freedoms that were won on those battlefields in the Revolutionary War and in the battlefields of the Civil War in 1812, the First World War, in the Second World War. Freedoms were fought, not just for us, but they were fought for other places and other countries. And we have seen a lot of our freedoms disappear. A lot of our freedoms taken away. And we have let them do it. And that's what we as Christians have got to watch out, because Christ has given us freedoms. The freedoms Jesus Christ has given us were hard fought for. He went to the cross. And He went to hell for each one of us. But He also did it for those that are outside this church, for those that do not know Him as Lord and Savior. He did it for each and every person who lives now, or who already lived or will live. They have that same opportunity. But sometimes we don't stop to think that God has broken our bondage to sin. People will say things like, well, I can't help it, I'm just human. Well, if Jesus Christ said you could help it, you can help it. He is the one that paid that price for that freedom. Just as our soldiers have fought for freedom here and around the world, we sometimes want things just focused on us. And as Christians, sometimes we get a little particular about that. And we just worry about those that are around us. Maybe just our spouse or our friends. And we don't even worry or think about those around the world who don't enjoy the freedom of Jesus Christ. We don't think about those out in Shenandoah. A young lady locally that just went to prison or to jail. How many of you were like, oh yes, I need to pray for this young girl? And how many of us were like, oh, I wonder who that was? Not really concerned whether or not she comes to know the Lord. Are our hearts broken before God in seeing people struggle? Or are we just indifferent to the freedom? America has become very indifferent to its freedoms. People on both sides of the spectrum. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. Both sides have given up freedoms. They don't believe one nation under God. That has come under attack. It'll come under more attack in the days ahead, the weeks ahead. There's already been movements to take God out of the schools totally. Do you realize that that's future generations coming up? And now that that's been in policy for years, people don't even know what their freedoms are. Years ago, I had two young ladies went down to the high school and told them they were going to do praying around the flagpole. And they were informed they couldn't. That is against the law by those who were in charge of the school. And those two young girls said, no, it's not. We have that freedom and we have that right. And now students have been praying around the flagpoles for a lot of years now. And it still goes on. We have had students go out and start Bible studies in their schools. It's allowed. But people have told you, oh, you can't do that. The law doesn't say you can't do it. The law actually says you still have the right to hold that Bible study as long as they let any other group use that school. They have to allow you to hold your Bible study. But there's so many people that think that's not legal. No, it is legal. There's so many people who are just believing what the man on the street says and don't check it out yourselves. We have freedoms. The guys we had here that stood all made that option to serve their country and in different aspects. But actually, everybody in the United States who appreciates the freedoms that they have been given should be doing what they can to keep those freedoms. It's not the military's job now to keep the freedoms they have given us. It's our job as Americans. And it's not Christ's job now to keep us from giving back our freedoms that He has given us. That is our job as followers of Jesus Christ. We are told it was for freedom that Christ set us free. Therefore, keep standing firm and do not be subject again to a yoke of slavery. And he talks about that yoke of slavery as to sin. You do not have to sin. There is no excuse to sin. We all can give good excuses. Hey, I'll use some of them myself. But they're just that, excuses that we're made to believe is the truth. But the truth is what Jesus Christ says and what Jesus Christ has done for us. And He has said, don't put yourselves under a yoke of slavery to sin. We don't have to. It says, for you were called to freedom, brethren. Only do not turn your freedom into the opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. As I've traveled around this world, I have seen a lot of other countries that do not have any respect for the United States of America. Because sad to say, there are those others who have been using their freedom in the wrong way in other countries. They see Americans in a totally different light. They see them as those few people that they have had interconnections with or that they hear about. But it says, do not turn your freedom into an opportunity for the flesh. We aren't free just because we're saved to go out and live however we want. We are to live by the Spirit and walk by the Spirit. That means that everything you do involves Jesus Christ. Everything you do reflects on Jesus Christ. Everything you say. You know, it's interesting because Jesus tells us to be full of love. But if we're talking and acting negatively towards people, that's not full of love. If our neighbor is giving us problems and we talk about them, that's not full of love. If our friends down at Walmart or at the cafe or at the bakery or wherever you are, hear someone who's supposed to be a Christian talking negatively constantly, saying things constantly, it reflects Christ. I've heard a lot of different people saying, and they're not just talking about this church, they say, I don't go to church because they're full of hypocrites. Amen. Are we reflecting what Jesus Christ wants us to? Are we taking our freedom and using it to a point where others do not see us as the way they want to be? They're like, if that's what Jesus means, I don't want anything to do with it. That's our fault, not Jesus' fault. Every one of us needs to walk by the Spirit and walk reflecting. The same way as we go to another country, we are always marked as Americans. One time, a young couple, this wasn't that long ago, went over to France. And the anguish and anger towards America was so bad that they chose to use, they bought backpacks with the Canadian flag on them. Just so people wouldn't know they were from America. And this was a supposed ally. But they were having such problems with people that did not like Americans over there, that was their choice. And do we want that where people see Jesus, and instead of reflecting Jesus, we're trying to reflect something else because we don't want people to know that we're Christian? The whole town can probably tell you who goes to what church. I've lived here long enough. You don't say anything in this town and it don't spread pretty fast. And so they know where we go. Whether you want to or not, you're reflecting Jesus Christ. And you're reflecting this church. And you're reflecting on those that are sitting around you. Because we are one family. We are the family of God. And so let's love people to the Lord. Let's take the freedom Jesus has given us and share it with others. Just as our soldiers have gone to other countries to fight, and some die for freedom for other people, we should be willing to fight and even die to share God's freedom, the freedom Jesus Christ has given us, with other people. Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, just thank you, Lord, so much for each and every soldier who has died on the battlefield giving the ultimate for the freedoms either here in this country or abroad. Lord, I ask you to give a blessing for every soldier who has served, knowing he could be called to go on the battlefield, and those that served on the battlefield. And Lord, on the police officers who have chosen a life dedicated to serving their communities, serving those people that they are there to protect. And they're there to protect our freedoms and to give them safety. Lord, we thank you for them. Lord, most of all, we thank you for your choice to come down in a human form, to come down and be 100% human but 100% God, and to die for us, giving us a freedom for all eternity from sin, and help us to fight every day to keep that freedom instead of just giving it back or abusing it. And Lord, I pray that this country be swept by a revival of your name, so that we would be one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Amen.